let's talk about Graham Hancock's new Netflix series, Ancient Apocalypse. Get in here, this is Cosmic Road, where I discuss UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below as I'm going through the story. Oh, and there's new membership features available. Please become a member of the channel to support Cosmic Road so I can make the best quality videos I know how. You can also leave a tip in the tip jar with the super thanks feature below. Okay, let's get into it. I've been a fan of Graham Hancock for years, ever since I started down this road, peering into the paranormal and the weird, I guess. When his first book came out in, was it the 90s? I wasn't into any of this back then, and I had heard about Fingerprints of the Gods, and I had a friend or two that was into that kind of thing, and, I just kind of smiled indulgently and went on my way. I never took any of it seriously until I started looking into it. And that's kind of really the secret to all of this stuff. The UFO phenomenon, the ghost phenomenon, all of it. Once you do the research, you find out how real this stuff is. And there really does seem to have been an ancient super civilization that is now lost. And, whether you call that Atlantis or Lemuria or, both or something else altogether, the evidence is very strong that this ancient super civilization had a global impact that we can still see today. From the pyramids all over the world to various advances, agriculture, other things that are attributed to these, what Graham Hancock calls the civilizing hero, usually a figure coming from over the sea, from Atlantis, I don't know, to bring civilization to the regular uncivilized people. And this is a common myth repeated throughout the world. And it's very similar everywhere you go. So there seems to be something to that about these wise, civilized people, this advanced people from over the sea. And it doesn't matter which direction you go, east or west, they're coming over the sea. So that seems to indicate possibly an island origin. Maybe, possibly. So bias alert, all right? I admit it. Once I started looking into all of this a few years ago and found the evidence was so overwhelming, I was, Graham had me at hello. I mean, come on, let's be real. But nevertheless, I really dove into this series very excitedly. I binged the whole thing in one day. I mean, it doesn't hurt that each episode is like 35 minutes long, but it's just super fascinating and compelling. And I learned a lot that I didn't already know. I mean, I have researched a lot of this before, but he found facets and places that I had never investigated. I had briefly heard of the Serpent Mound in Ohio, but I had never done any serious investigation in it. And the same can be true for several of these locales. And with each place he went, even the ones that I had heard about and done some research on, I found new nuggets that I had no idea about. So it was super worth my time, even for somebody who's looked into this. So, if you're somebody like me that is interested in this stuff and has looked into it somewhat, I would still highly recommend it. It is very well produced. It is very slick. If anything, it's a little too slick. I would like it if it were a little more raw with a few less cuts and sound effects. But, that's okay. It definitely makes it entertaining. The obvious budget on display also allows for another really cool feature of these episodes, and that is the CGI recreations of these ancient places. They're all in ruins now, pretty much. And so we get to go to really cool places like, I'm going to butcher the names, but Gunung Patang, which is this really neat place on top of a mountain in Java. Yeah, I had to look it up. Near the village of Karyamukti. Gunung Patang is a megalithic site built on earth and stone at the top of an extinct volcano. Very cool. And yeah, so it looks very, it's made of these blocks of stone that are of a seemingly natural construction. And for many years, archaeologists thought that it must be some sort of natural deposit. But when researchers finally began investigating it, they found that no, actually, this place was man made and it's massive. It's this, huge, this grand scale construction on the top of this mountain, this extinct volcano. And it's just super impressive. And when Graham shows the CGI recreation of this thing, and you get to see how large it is, not just on the surface, but below ground as well, because this thing goes deep under the ground. And above ground, it's structured in a tiered structure, so that you could call it a pyramidal structure. Graham wants to call it a pyramid, and relate it to these other pyramids around the world, and it very well could be. And Graham goes to some really cool places, all the way from the Great Pyramid of Cholula to the Gigantija. I can't say it very well, but it's this hugely impressive sight, especially when you see the CGI recreation of what it used to be. Now it's all in ruins. There's really not a whole lot left of it. But once you see what it looked like in its prime, you will be blown away. I was. I'm not going to go location by location. Otherwise, I could just do, honestly, an episode by episode review, but I'm not going to take the time to do that. And each episode is only like 35 minutes. But yeah, overall, though, my overall impressions and the overall takeaway is that I really resonate with Graham's central message of the series. It's only 8 episodes long. And that's that there was this ancient super civilization that had this global impact that brought civilization and a high culture, a high, learning and probably agriculture and certainly architecture, possibly influenced their religions and their various other things. And so there was this ancient, let's just call it Atlantis. There was this place, this grand civilization known as Atlantis, and it vanished. So what happened to it? Graham posits that it vanished at the end of the last ice age with the Younger Dryas Cataclysm. And that's a huge apocalyptic event. And there are fingerprints of the gods, if you will, all over the world, because of all these meteor strikes. And if you watch the series, he'll explain it all, where the strikes came from and how we might actually run into that same stream of meteors or asteroids again. However, I must disagree with Graham. I don't think that the vanishing of Atlantis, to give it a name, can quite be explained by the Younger Dryas Cataclysm. This was a super advanced civilization that did have tentacles all over the world. So, and it had people in all these places, bringing them culture and enlightenment. It probably had colonies. A lot of people think that Egypt was a colony of Atlantis, and there's some evidence to support that. So if it did have people and colonists and pilgrims or what missionaries, whatever you want to call them, all over the world, how could it have been destroyed so completely by the Younger Dryas Cataclysm? Because people in those places survived. The Younger Dryas Cataclysm may have devastated them, but they did continue. So surely some Atlanteans somewhere would have survived in enough numbers to at least, start a new Atlantis or something. We would have writings from them. We would have temples. You can argue that there are temples in Egypt and a few other places, but those are half cargo cults. So some of the earliest Egyptian statues and temples may indeed be Atlantean or extremely influenced by Atlantis. I completely think that is possible. But as far as a clear, distinct Atlantis that is separate from any other culture or people, we don't see that. And we don't, they didn't leave us any writings. They didn't leave us anything really. You can see their fingerprints, but you can't see the hand or even a fingernail. So to me, that suggests that something more monumental happened. That there was something going on there. Maybe the Atlanteans went somewhere else, or some outside force came and utterly wiped them out. And maybe there were a few survivors around, because there is evidence of that. The Essenes, for example, the Jewish subculture, believe they were founded by the Atlanteans, and there's others. There's the Basques and the Berbers that in their ancient mythology believed they were descended from the survivors of Atlantis, much like the Colu, who founded or heavily influenced the Essenes. So there were definitely, or there seems to have been survivors, but for some reason they never rebuilt any vestige of that great civilization. And they seem to have been kind of in hiding, at least the Colu were, seemingly, in some sort of hiding. And they were only sharing this information out with certain groups in a very low-key way. So let's just say that's true. Why? To me, that does suggest that their time on this earth was over for whatever reason, whether they left on their own or were wiped out by some outside force that they then had to hide from. Whatever the reason, to me it seems like there was a deliberate, systematic wiping out of all of their direct culture. So to me, that's what makes sense. So I'm going to disagree with Graham on that one aspect. That's not to say the Younger Dryas Cataclysm didn't play a part of that, and may have been part of that overall ending cycle, whatever that was. Maybe that aided and assisted them in destroying their culture, or some other force in doing so. But anyway, those are just my thoughts, but that's separate from the series itself, really. But Graham doesn't really want to go there. He's trying to make this argument as mainstream as possible. He never invokes aliens or outside forces as I do, or talk about the Atlanteans going somewhere. He's trying to make this mainstream. I mean, he has worked so hard over decades to make this mainstream, and to get mainstream archaeologists and historians to take his ideas seriously. And I think they should. I think his research has earned that. That's not to say that I think that everything in the series is, well, for example, Bimini Road. I've never been sold on Bimini Road being 100%, part of some lost culture. To me, it seems possible that is indeed a natural feature, and that he spends some time in the series and one episode talking about Bimini Road. If you don't know what that is, it's a really cool feature, whether it's man-made or not. But in general, he goes to these ancient ruins that are indisputably ancient ruins, some of them of vast antiquity, like Göbekli Tepe, possibly that underground city in Turkey that was super impressive. The CGI recreation of that underground city, where you see the cross section of it going down and down and down and down, so many levels. like this giant ant mound in the earth, and all of it, kind of spacious and livable. It's really amazing. Anyway, so the locations that he goes to are great, and the pieces that he's putting together are very compelling. And like I said, Graham had me at hello. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and the bell to be notified of future videos. Please follow me on social media and interact with me there. There's Facebook and Twitter links below in the description. It'd be super helpful if you would share these videos when they drop on social media. Also, if you wanted to support the channel, there's ways you can do that. There are 2 membership tiers below, and if you get the second tier, you get exclusive videos, so check that out. You can also just leave a tip in the tip jar with the super thanks feature below. Alright, until next time, this is Jack from Cosmic Road.